What's a secret your so still doesn't know about you, and why have you kept it secret? I hate her homemade spaghetti sauce. It's been 14 years. Why tell her now? Honey, have you changed your pasta sauce recipe? No. You should. From context clues picked up in conversations we've had. I found his Reddit username. I check it at least once a week and give him secret upvotes. Get that karma, babe. In Seinfeld, George Costanza has this hilarious answering machine message of him singing. I did the same thing with our house phone since no one will ever call it. Going on 3 years and she has no clue. I just want to see how long the joke can last. A couple of my friends and relatives know about it, lol. I think his best friend uses him for money etc and he's too scared of losing him to ever protest. Really vile. That's a bummer. I hate it when others prey on other people's good nature. Especially between friends. He's too trusting. Especially of this guy. He seems to be able to do no wrong at all. Someone tried to break into our building with a big kitchen knife about 6 months ago. She's already quite paranoid, scared of this sort of thing happening. So telling her would more than likely mean she wouldn't sleep and probably mean we would have to move house. Does it make you consider moving house also? Not really. My mum and dad live in quite a nice area and their house has been broken into on a few occasions. Whilst we've lived in our apartment for 2 years, this is the only incident of anything of that kind. I feel safe enough here to not move. Whereas I feel that if my son knew about this we would be moving as soon as possible. I absolutely hate his brother with a passion. He thinks I like him. Well, it sounds like you're doing something right. What is it that irks you about his brother? He's very hypocritical and opinionated. I'm all for a good debate about topics, but he's very much one of those people who think that only their opinion is right and no one else's. He's very egotistical. Arrogant and just thinks he's God's gift. When going to the store one day, Miso asked me last second to take our 3-year-old daughter. I was already in the car, so Miso strapped her in. She was oddly quiet the whole car ride and I accidentally went in the store without her because of it. I remembered after being in the store only about 45 seconds but immediately left the store to get her. I was so embarrassed someone would notice, so I went to a completely different store. Now it scares the shit out of me, and even when I know I don't have one of my kids I always check behind me before getting out of the car. One of the worst feelings I've ever had, and even now I get sick to my stomach thinking about it. She doesn't really know how big my Lego collection is, since most of it is in storage. We are moving next week, and it will all be in a stack in the new garage. Heck, I'm not even sure how big it is. She knows my use, so this is pretty light. Lol. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Most of mine are in a closet in our guest room. We're converting that room to a nursery soon. So it's going to be a real eye-opener for her and me to actually see how big my collection is. That I didn't actually find our dog lost and alone in a parking lot. I actually paid $70 to a couple meth heads for her. He didn't want a dog, and I knew these people wouldn't take care of her. So I made up a sob story that she had no one else, and I just convinced him she should stay, rather than me finding her another home. He absolutely loves the little maniac now. D. I have a secret safe in our house. I just keep some notes, financial info and some emergency cash in it, so nothing sinister. She just doesn't know about it. I had the house safe before she moved in and I just haven't bothered to tell her about it. Just how bad my past relationships were. I have given him surface level accounts of my past, but the actual details are so painful for me that I can't find the words for it all. Also, just telling him the bare minimum caused noticeable pain on his face. I think the full truth would leave a sizable amount of pain in his heart. I don't need him to know the details or feel any form of pity for me. I just need him to know that he makes me feel beautiful, safe, loved and special. And how grateful I really am to finally have someone who wants to show me how beautiful life really is and can be. My girlfriend has a rough past. She's told me parts and I ask from time to time because I want to know, and sure enough each time it hurts to hear. Because there's nothing I could have done, and that someone would hurt someone so intelligent and beautiful and kind just makes me sad. Anyway. Even though she doesn't give me the details and I stopped asking. I appreciate what you said. That's given me more peace in a paragraph than anything else has. His background picture on the computer is a pretty nice digital art piece of a Gundam, or a mecha at least. But it's from Gundam. Thing is, I keep seeing one of the face parts as a big derpy smile. So one day when he wasn't home I found a pic of a dog with its tongue hanging out and photoshopped it onto the Gundam. I don't even remember how long ago it was. I even told him I had pranked him somehow. And he still hasn't noticed it. Edit, I just realized I worded that poorly. I only took the dog's tongue and stuck it onto the Gundam's face. Maybe I'll add more dog parts. A few years ago I had a big cup of water on my nightstand with a straw. And when I went to get a drink, I felt something odd in my mouth. When I spit it out, it was a spider. She's terrified of spiders. If I had told her, she might have never slept in that room again. Thankfully I've moved since then anyway. And now use a cup with a lid that closes all the way. My wife knows that I was in the military. Which branch? And that I spent time in the Middle East. I haven't told her any of the things I did while overseas because she would be horrified at the cavalier violence. I think she would never look at me the same way again. It's been over a decade. And I'm not that person anymore, so best to let sleeping dogs lie. My fiance told me once early on in our relationship we were playing the question game that he was in the Middle East and part of a mission that accidentally killed a lot of civilians. He told me never to ask him what happened. I haven't. And I never will. I shut down internet whenever my so is talking trash on COD. Not because I mind. But because he does it in such an obnoxious way. He can go on 4 minutes at a time. Then he comes over to me very calmly and asks, "Is the internet down for you too?" My wife doesn't know how deathly afraid of being alone I am. Like, it really, truly scares me to my core. Not being alone, like having alone time, that doesn't bother me, but the idea of spending my life alone is terrifying to me. I sometimes feel like I put up with things I shouldn't. Because I love her and worry so much about being alone or having her leave me. I've spent nights pretending to sleep so that she won't know that thinking about it keeps me up at night. I once had a crush on Ferb from Phineas and Ferb. I wanted some alone time, so I told my wife that I have a work conference and just rented an Airbnb to be by myself and play Zelda on my Switch for a few days. Why not just say that to her? My GF and I take alone time when we need it just by saying, "I love you but I see you a lot and I just wanna hang out for a bit." Completely normal. I have a brother that's a registered sex offender in another state. From that brother I have 7 nieces and nephews. I don't mention it because I have no reason to be in contact with that part of my family. You still need to mention it. You wouldn't want to be in the unlikely but possible situation where your brother somehow meets your wife and she welcomes him not knowing that he's dangerous. About 8 years ago I discovered my wife's sister's Reddit account accidentally. It was a variation of a username she'd used for AIM before. But with different numbers and no underscore. The numbers were a significant date to her though. There were too many coincidences in her posts for it not to be her. She was posting on the relationship advice subreddit. Her now ex-husband was abusive. We'd known something was off about him, but couldn't really put our finger on it. I created another account that I only accessed from incognito mode to send her encouragement to leave. And to ask her family or friends, but kinda steered her towards us, for help. She didn't want to impose or be a burden on any of them, we just had a kid. And I make a bunch of money but we live well within our means, so you wouldn't think this based on appearances. So it was an understandable concern. I slowly, over several weeks and several different posts she made, convinced her that it's possible her family realizes something isn't quite right and would not consider it a burden to help her out. After their divorce I deleted that account. Nobody will ever know that the random internet stranger who was weirdly persistent in encouraging my soul to reach out to her family for help and leave her abusive marriage was actually me. Fairly sure my soul isn't exactly sure how many cameras and lenses I own. One big lens looks more or less the same as another. HMN. I did live with a man for a year, had a bit of a gay phase. I've told her I was bisexual, had some man crushes. Can see the appeal of Conor McGregor, Jake Gyllenhaal, Tom Hiddleston, Chris Pratt, Robert Downey Jr., but I said I'd never really gone the whole way and wasn't that interested in it. Also I was sexually assaulted and I once got an STD. And I can't taste her cooking because I did too much coke and lost my sense of smell. TLDR, too much blow. I inherited a few million from my mother who died when I was a child. I've mostly left it alone because there wasn't anything I wanted that I couldn't just get with some elbow grease. Once my son and I are at the cusp of doing the house and kids thing, I will let him know so he can stop worrying about earning enough to put a down payment on a new home. I would say don't let him know exactly how much and where you got it. You say you got a small inheritance and would like to contribute more for the down payment of the house or even to contribute more to your joint account. You have no idea how money changes people and those around them. Suddenly his friends and relatives all need help and he's the only one that can help them because his wife is worth millions. Don't put yourself in that position. She doesn't know that I am not poor. For my age I have made huge amounts of money which I have spent on condos and rent them to the amount that I have a livable wage. My mom and dad always fought over money and the last thing I want is for me to end up with someone just because of what I have. For me I am well off. For the rest of the world I am starving. I made a dent in our garage door one time while trying to park a little too close to it. It also left a huge scratch on the door and my car's bumper. My husband never found out. He notices everything but for some reason he never noticed the bump on the garage door. We sold that house recently and I thought for sure he'd see it and I'd have to fess up, but nope. It's been 5 years since that incident and I think I'll take that story with me to the grave. I recently downloaded Reddit because my son was always on it and was always showing me memes, dog videos and content I liked. Since I liked his Reddit feed, the content he was showing me, I subscribed to a lot of the same subreddits as him. However, I now see all the content I like on my own account. I check Reddit fairly often, and I've begun to realize that all the memes, videos, etc. he sends me, I've already seen it. I know how much it sucks when someone says I've seen that already. So, every time he shows me some content I've already seen, I always pretend like I've never seen it before. It makes him really happy when he shows me something and smile, find it funny, etc. I know he browses this subreddit sometimes, so hopefully he doesn't see my comment. My wife had her drink on the floor one evening while sitting on the couch watching Netflix. She took a drink and immediately spit it out. A bug had gotten in her glass and she almost swallowed it. I immediately grabbed the drink, told her it's just a little moth, and while I disposed of the drink ruin as she gagged profusely and rinsed her mouth out. All bugs freak her out. Thankfully she was soon mostly over it since it was such a small moth. Will never tell her it was a pretty good sized cockroach. My so's father used to always give her quarters growing up. He has since passed, and now every time someone in the family finds a quarter they think of him looking down on them. It's sweet. Before we moved into our first home, I snuck in and hid quarters in obscure places all over the house. She's still finding them and she likes to leave them in the spot she found them as a reminder. It always makes her smile and I'll never tell. When I was like 6 I sheet my pants and I was embarrassed to leave the bathroom with the sheet filled underwear, so I threw them deep up on the top part of the bathroom closet. They might still be up there. Edit, I'm 17 now. My wife often tries to get me to tell her which female celebrities I have a thing for. She's being good natured and fun when she asks, but she is already an insecure person. Even though my wife is gorgeous, I know that if she knew who my celebrity crush is, she would not be able to resist comparing herself to them. if we ever watched a show or movie with a person in it. I know she would tease me for only watching it because of them. etc. I have told her that I appreciate that she says it's okay. And I don't mind knowing who her celebrity crushes are. But to protect her heart, I refuse to tell her mine. I don't ever want my wife thinking that there is someone else, especially not someone in particular, that I wish she was like instead of the beautiful person she already is. I knew my girlfriend bought me slippers for Christmas a few weeks in advance. And instead of telling her, I just talked more about how much I needed some slippers. It made her extra excited for me to open something that I needed so much. I wouldn't want to ruin that memory for her. 10/10 slippers. 11/10 sweetheart. Well, I don't have any anymore. But it was how I was relentlessly bullied in HS. It came out because we went to a Christmas party for her work. One of her co-workers was one of the bullies and I just kinda kept my distance. A few days later she told my fiancé about it and my fiancé was upset that I didn't tell her. And it ended up being like a month-long pity party for me. Which is exactly part of why I didn't tell her. I just want to get past it. Not exactly my so. But a girl I was with for years. About a month after we broke up she texted me for an hour or two about how she wished she had ducked me in the ears with a strap on. etc. It wasn't particularly friendly. When I was a kid, I had more than a few issues with someone trying to duck me in the ass. I wasn't particularly a fan of it. I got very lucky in a sheet situation. Anyways, I never told her about it because why would I? But after her little rant, she came back with, let's be friends, I appreciate you and need you in my life. And I couldn't help but be against the idea. She couldn't have known. But that one day turned me so against having her anywhere near me that it wasn't funny. Be careful what you say to people when you're upset. That I was kicked out of the army. All she and her family know is that at one point in my life, I was in the army. She's seen my beret, so I guess that's enough proof for her. I can't imagine it would destroy us, but I don't just drop information like that on people. I find my fiancée as attractive now as before she got pregnant. She had a C-section and got heavier because of recovery and how stressful having a newborn is. I think she's still just as sexy as before, but I know she has self-esteem issues and don't want her to interpret it the wrong way. Obviously it would be nice for both of us to be at a healthier weight. But I'm fine with dying slightly younger and getting fat together.